Hey guys, welcome to the Good Sound Club podcast, episode number 3. I apologize for the delay since the last upload. We took a bit of a break for the new year, but we're back. Of course, joining me is my co host Tom,
Hey,
and we have a very special guest today, Ev from ETA Headphones. Thank you, Ev, for joining us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I'm glad y'all invited me on.
Of course. Tom, as Master of Ceremonies, what's the first question on the agenda?
well, since we have Ev here, we wanted to ask Ev about their headphones in the form of ETA headphones. So, what is ETA?
ETA is a headphone startup, and the name is an acronym for the people involved in the project. So myself, Ev, T for Tommy, and A for Alex. We all have different roles, but ETA kind of started out of modding projects between all three of us that were kind of sparse and unrelated, but through meeting each other on online communities like Super Best Audio Friends and Discord, we all kind of came together and decided to start a headphone company. So ETA is the company that makes our headphones.
Well, very cool. So, why ETA?
Well, I've been modding headphones for a long time. And the reason that I would mod headphones is because, I was a poor college student and I didn't want to throw a bunch of money into buying new headphones all the time. So, whatever headphones I had decided on based on all of my research, um, when I ended up not loving them in every single way, I decided to dig into them and try to see if I could change them to overcome their deficiencies or explore different sounds they were capable of. And over time, I kept posting to various online communities about my projects, and people were gaining interest. And eventually, people started to contact me and ask me if I would modify their headphones for them, kind of as a commission, and they would offer to pay me. And after doing that for a few years, that's when I met up with Tommy and Alex, and we decided to create things totally from scratch. And that's kind of how ETA headphones got started. So I guess you could say, it was from a dissatisfaction of products that were already out there. Um, and like I said before, I was a poor college student. I'm very interested in bringing products to a lower price point and have a better price to performance ratio. So yeah, that's kind of our like guiding principles for ETA and kind of where we came from.
Well, I think everyone can get behind that. Sina, do you have any questions?
Yeah, for sure. So, tell us basically, you can answer this question directly and just say, what do you guys look for when you're designing your own headphones? Like, what is it that's missing with the current high-end personal audio market that you think you fill as a niche?
Well, I like to think that my approach to headphone design is about the big picture, and how every aspect of the design kind of plays into a synergistic goal of creating a certain sound. Of course, having a sound in your mind as an end target can sometimes be difficult because it's abstract, and you have to figure out creative ways to get the sound you want, and sometimes parts are a limitation. But for me, it's about figuring out what the driver does best, what the driver kind of tends to do, the driver being the speaker in the headphone. Then seeing how that interacts with the ear pads that go on the headphone, which also have a big effect on the sound, and the design of the housing itself, what effect that has on the behavior of the driver, how that plays into the pad. So all of these recipes, I kind of look at in a vacuum. I look at in other headphones. I try to figure out what works and what doesn't, and then I try to apply that to my own headphone by making really big, broad choices. And then after those choices, kind of give me something I'm looking for or not looking for, then Tommy and I will keep iterating and kind of dialing in things until we get to the place that we want to. Uh, yeah.
Right, and these big companies, I mean, they have so much money in R&D. What is it that they don't get? Like, how is it that they're bungling the execution, basically, that makes it so that someone like yourself or any other amateur can kind of do some simple modifications and get much better results?
Yeah, so a lot of audiophile products, like headphones that you can buy off the shelf, when these big companies are designing the headphones, oftentimes they're looking to find a new patentable technology because if you have a patent on something, then it can be more profitable for you when you produce it. But that's one thing that ETA is not so much interested in. We're taking a lot of parts that are more readily accessible, that are more conventional technologies, and finding ways to implement them better. So I think maybe one of the key differences between us and a larger headphone manufacturer is that we're concerned mostly with optimization as opposed to finding new technologies and putting them into a package that's kind of optimized as a lifestyle product, something that's comfortable, something that looks really cool, which are all totally valid things to look for as a consumer. But I think our focus is like mainly on the sound itself and not so much about these new technologies, not so much about finding ways to have a luxury looking product, but more kind of just about brute force value and about experimenting until we find something that we think really works from a subjective standpoint and also have some like objective measurements and stuff to kind of like back up why we think it sounds good.
Right. So someone's saving up, 200, 300, $500 to buy a really good pair of headphones. With you, they're really paying for the value of the sound, the performance that comes with it, instead of kind of um, maybe a marketing driven design from a bigger name.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Cool. Okay, Tom, back to you.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, you've modded headphones. You told me a little bit of how you tried to design headphones. What do you have right now? What's available from ETA headphones?
Right now, the only headphone that is actually in production, meaning that you can order one and get one shipped to you within a couple of weeks' time, is the Mini headphone. And of course, we were kind of in R&D limbo with a bunch of different models for a long time, and Mini kind of came into being out of a necessity to not waste parts that we had from our previous experimentation and a previous model that we sold and was discontinued. But yeah, the Mini headphone, it's our cheapest headphone to date, and it will probably continue to be so for the life of ETA. Um, and yeah, every aspect of its design is kind of centered around this idea of the simplest approach to get the best sound that we can. So yeah, the design itself is basically one piece. It uses an OEM headband, which means basically a generic headband that we can source in mass, and it uses pads from a generic manufacturer as well. So it's really just about our drivers and these parts coming together to create, I guess, the epitome of the vision of ETA, which is to get the best possible performance at the lowest possible price, which is possible with such a simple design like Mini, which is on sale now.
Okay, it's on sale and it's a great value. But you said something about your driver. Do you just pick a generic driver to use in your headphones, or?
Yeah, so the drivers that we're using now, actually, my interest in them started because I was modifying a Fostex TH900 a lot of the time for commissions. Um, so I got really familiar with that driver, with how it behaves. So I ended up picking a driver from an OEM manufacturer that is built in almost the same exact way as that driver, but then working with that manufacturer to adjust specific parameters and find the sound and performance that we wanted. So at its core, it is very much like a Foster driver, and there's a lot of other headphone companies that are using this driver. Emu uses this driver, Denon uses this driver, Fostex, yeah, but instead of using the same off the shelf driver, we've customized it in a few key ways. So we're using a graphene diaphragm instead of biocellulose. We're using an N52 magnet, which is basically the strongest possible neodymium magnet at any given size that's on the market, stronger than any other headphone in production today. And we are also able to customize the impedance. So the drivers that are in Mini and were in our previous headphone as well are graphene N52, and they're 50 millimeters and they're 300 ohms for now.
Okay, really glad to hear about the driver and kind of what makes it unique and kind of your approach of letting the driver speak for itself, kind of to kind of get the most performance out of it. But tell us about your housings. Like, how do you? That seems like the most complicated part to me. How do you guys actually keep up with the big name manufacturers in terms of being able to test out different acoustic designs and see what gets the best response out of that driver?
So, in my experience, the most important aspects of a design to sound are airflow and shapes. So, like how far the distance is from your ear, whether or not it's angled, what is around it, what is like directly in front of or behind it. Those are the things that make the biggest difference. A lot of manufacturers of more expensive products will focus a lot on the materials they put into their headphone. For example, exotic woods or things like carbon fiber. things that really have an aesthetic value and have like novel technology. Um, and I'm also interested in investigating those things, but in general, the acoustic manipulation is mostly just due to sizes, shapes, and airflow. So airflow is the one that we've kind of iterated the most amount of times in our designs. And there's of course airflow in front of and behind the speaker that you can manipulate. But yeah, I would say that airflow is one of the things that we've iterated the most amount of times, along with those shapes in front of and behind the driver to kind of like craft the sound that we're going for.
Okay, cool. And for people who haven't seen the Mini, it is very open. It's open on both the front and the back, right? So that's kind of back to the idea of letting the driver speak for itself.
Exactly. Yeah. The Mini was created because we had these leftover drivers, and I really wanted to focus on getting the best performance I could with minimal amount of design features. So the Mini, in terms of its design, is actually an extremely simple headphone. It has a solid baffle, meaning that the airflow or the baffle itself does not allow any air to come through between the back and the front. And in the back of the headphone, the driver is literally exposed and it's open air. So there's literally nothing on the back side, and the front side, there's nothing on the front side that's going to affect the airflow. So pretty much the only thing that's being used to tailor the tone is the ear pads that are being used on the front side that let air out because they're made of exposed foam and they come in different shapes. And then, of course, on the back of the driver, there are a lot of vents. So I've been able to iterate on those vents with different filters on each vent's level, so like individually, and craft tone that way using different densities of filters in different places, just iterating that several times.
Okay, awesome. In terms of iteration, like what does your feedback process look like? Because I know, you get a design to the point where you're happy with it, but how do you solicit feedback from other people? Do you have like a test group that's local to you, or how do you do it?
Yeah, so the process of figuring out whether or not an iteration is good or bad mostly comes from listening. So I'll try something, I'll listen to it for a little while, I'll decide subjectively whether I like it or not, and then I'll measure it, even if I don't like it, just to see if I can develop patterns between what I see in the graph, what I hear, whether I like those things, and whether I don't. I'll keep doing that several times until I feel like there's a balance between the data and also my perception where those things meet together and I like it, then I'm like, okay, I'm confident to share this with somebody. So that's the first thing that happens. The second thing that happens is I'll just show it to whoever's around me. So sometimes I'll go out in public, not so much anymore because of COVID and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I'll just, see if anybody is like using headphones or like is looking around. If they like catch my eye, I'll be like, hey, you want to hear a cool pair of headphones? Um, and I know it sounds really weird and creepy, but oftentimes I think the random bystander gives the most insightful feedback because they don't have a lot of bias about how something should sound. They don't know if I'm showing to them as something that's very expensive, that's not expensive. I'm just giving it to them with as clear of a mind as I hope they can bring. And oftentimes they give me really insightful feedback. Also, my partner who lives with me is not an audiophile, is not concerned with the minutia of what I'm doing, but when they give me feedback, that's also very insightful to me in a way that sending to people who are kind of deeply embedded in audio culture. Their feedback is good too, but it's definitely a different flavor.
Great. That's really interesting that you get, yeah, a lot of feedback from non-audiophiles. Do you ask them any specific questions, or is it more just open-ended? What do you think about this, and let them choose their own vocabulary?
It is mostly open-ended questions, but even independent of the verbal cues that they give me about whether or not they like something, I tend to notice how long they listen to it, if they want to keep
Hmm.
listening to more stuff, if they want to turn it up. Those are all important things. And also, I'll ask them like, or I'll notice, what they're plugging it into and how well of a job that does, because I do really want to make my headphones accessible in terms of like how good of a performance you can get off of modest equipment as well, because value is big picture, right? It's not just about the cost of the headphone itself, but the cost of the full system that needs to go into making it sound good. Uh, but yeah, all those things kind of play into the feedback I get from whoever I show it to, and yeah, also times they'll just give me feedback even without me prompting them on specific qualities or whatever.
Cool. Tom, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like how you talk about it should sound good on almost everything. Not that I would say your headphones are colored, right? But I like the idea of efficient headphones. Because I don't always have a giant tube amp. in my back pocket. Sometimes I just want to listen, maybe outdoors. It's crazy. Or it's not that crazy, for audiophiles, I guess. But maybe I want to listen outdoors, maybe on a laptop. Maybe I don't want to, have a dongle with me. Maybe I just want to plug it into my laptop. What have you noticed any differences in impedances or sensitivities? Because I know you said you offered your headphone in different impedances or ohms. What do you?
Yeah, so the 300 ohm drivers we're using for the Mini now, they're about 100 decibels per milliwatt efficient. So for reference, that's about the same as a pair of Sennheiser 600 series headphones. Um, and in general, like they'll get loud enough from almost anything you plug them into, whether that's a laptop or a phone or whatever for casual listening. Maybe you can't turn it up past 100 dB or whatever. Um, but yeah, the 32 ohm model is about 10 decibels more efficient at any volume position on whatever device you plug it into. So that's just for people who probably know they're never going to spend a lot of money on an exotic amplifier or something like that. Um, but yeah, I think my focus on things being easy to drive came from me being someone who owned a Hi-Fi Man HE6 headphone, which is an excellent headphone. But I was very annoyed by the fact that every time I wanted to use it, I had to unplug my speakers and plug it into my speaker amp. And then, I was tethered to the cable that was at my speaker amp. And I also couldn't ever take it to a meet and share it with someone and know that I'll get good performance out of it because, like, it needs all this to make it sound good. So I make a point about tuning my headphones, even if they're 300 ohms, and would do better with a nicer amplifier directly out of my laptop jack because I know if I can make it sound good out of my laptop jack, then it just gets better from there, right? So I just try to set the bar as high as I can with the lowest common denominator just to be sure.
Well,
Awesome. Do you personally think that there's any compromise with the 32 ohm drivers? Or is it more just like trying to, offer the 300 ohm as for people who think that they need it?
Honestly, like just from testing 32 and 300 ohm drivers on a variety of amps, like even I have an OTL amp that has a pretty high output impedance. Um, Personally, I find the 32 ohm ones just unequivocally superior in every case.
Oh,
I
okay.
think they're a bit livelier. And I know that kind of runs against the common notion about impedance in headphone products. And I understand that a lot of people are going to be skeptical about that.
Yeah.
But frankly, I just think that the lower impedance drivers, given that they're more efficient, they just give me a clearer picture of what my source component sounds like and a little bit less of a picture of what my amplifier sounds like. Of course, maybe the 300 ohm headphone would be one preferred by someone who already has a lot invested in their amplifier and wants to get it like wants for its presentation to be evident when they're listening to the headphone. But I don't know. I just want to grant people that flexibility, regardless of my own opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, what you're talking about as the common notion to me, not to get too deep into this talk about impedances and stuff, but it's more of a misconception to me that people have about impedances. And really, I do love that someone out there, if it's you guys or someone else, is offering high sensitivity headphones that are not, really bottom of the barrel, low quality consumer stuff, which a lot of them are, um, because it's just so liberating to be able to plug them in. Own one pair of headphones, spent a couple $100 on them. Like Tom was saying, you want to be able to plug them into anything and enjoy music, right? I don't want to have to be chained to 3 or 4 boxes just to get the volume to the right level, or maybe it's not a matter of volume, but I feel like I'm missing something if I'm not doing that, and that's just kind of a ridiculous mind game that people play with themselves. I think so. It's really cool that you're doing that. Tom, did you have any other questions?
so to say that I really appreciate the lack of FOMO when it comes to a high efficient headphone. While while being high efficient might mean that I might hear noise on an amplifier. Um, I enjoy the fact that I can enjoy it where I wouldn't be able to enjoy another headphone if it was more difficult to drive, like let's say 85 decibels per milliwatt or even lower than that.
Yeah, I think that my HE6, by the time it was done being modded by me and a few other people, I think it was like 76 or 78 dB per milliwatt. It's just like
Wow.
ridiculous.
What did you have powering that?
I used a few different amps. I had a amp camp amp kit that I built that probably wasn't enough juice, even though I kind of like the sound. And I also had a first watt F7, which I'm still using with my speakers. And between those two, I had an Adcom 555, which is like a classic 90s amp designed by Nelson Pass, which puts out 325 watts into 8 ohms. And I was using that thing to power it. And still a pitch black, background. There's no like noise floor or anything, but it's just like, yeah, what a chore.
It's too much.
Yeah, too much.
That's a big box.
Yeah.
Hope
Okay, could you tell us maybe? Oh, so you mentioned Mini is available for purchase now. How much is it?
The price right now is $300, and it comes with three different types of ear pads, so you can adjust the
Wow.
sound to your preference. But for now, it's not going to come with a cable. I do have some audiophile Ninja cables left over from my previous headphone that was being produced that I can include if you don't have your own cable. But I think bringing your own cable is probably best.
And to get a cable, it's just a 3.5 millimeter plug for each ear cup, right? So those are very commonly available cables to
Yeah,
order.
several Hi-Fi Man cables use those. Some Sony headphone. So yeah, I forget which models, but some of them will use the same connector. A bunch of Focal headphones use the same connector, so it's pretty ubiquitous. Chances are, if you're already a headphone hobbyist, you've been collecting headphones, you probably already have one of these cables laying around.
Okay, awesome. And if people want to read more about ETA and the Mini, where can they go? Where can they find more about you guys?
They can go to etaheadphones.com, or they can find a way to reach me some other way. I can be emailed at etaheadphones at gmail.com. I can send links to our Discord server where we're constantly posting updates about development, different products, and people are having conversations. And yeah, those three ways are probably the best way.
Awesome. Okay, Tom, did you have any other questions about ETA, or did you want to transition into music and sound?
Yeah, I'd like to take us to the next segment. The music segment, my personal favorite. So this is a segment where I get to rant on the most about how I feel about music. So originally I wanted to go with the King Gizzard song, but they have a lot of songs and their music changes quite a bit, album to album. Generally, they go for a more progressive, math rocky, microtonal thing lately. But their latest release with DJ Shadow, Black Hot Soup, I absolutely love this track. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the character in the video. Maybe it's just it feels like it's so much like rock, hip hop, trip hop in some way. I personally love this direction, and I'm gonna go with King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, Black Hot Soup, DJ Shadow. That's gonna be my track for this episode. Now, Ev, what will be your track?
Just the whole soundtrack from this game, Lethal League Blaze, that I've been playing lately. I just revisited this game with a proper controller, and it's like playing way better. But yeah, the soundtrack, it's like mostly electronic music, but it's like full of bangers. There's a couple tracks by like Pixelord, and like even the menu music, and every scene where you're playing part of this fighting game has a different track, and just every single one of them is just like really hot shit. It just like sounds cool. Find it on Spotify. I'll just playing that radio station, and yeah, just vibing. It's great stuff.
Nice. Sina?
Yeah, there's an Irish rock band called Fontaines DC. They just released a new single, Jackie Down the Line. Google says they're a post punk band, but I don't know how accurate that is. You can tell these guys kind of grew up worshiping Oasis, especially the front man. So if you like Oasis, if you like Nirvana, if you like that mid 90s guitar rock sound, then you'll love this band. And every time they put out new material, I know that rock music is alive and well. So
I'll have to check that out.
cool. Okay. Well, thank you, Ev, so much for joining us. We hope to have you on again very soon. If you guys, again, want to know more about Ev and ETA Headphones, do check out their website, etaheadphones.com. I believe they also have a link there to a server they have, a chat room they have where Ev is constantly posting development updates. Really cool to see in real time kind of what he's cooking up, what he's coming up with. And do check out the Mini. It's an insane value. But otherwise, thank you for joining us, and catch you guys again next time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
See you later.